The government's top watchdog agency, the Federal Trade Commission, is stepping into one of the most controversial issues in America right now. Whether the so-called gender care industry has misled parents and harmed kids. This week, we sit down with FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson to hear what motivated him to take on this issue and why the stakes couldn't be higher for kids and families. But first, we bring you some timely updates, including a pending Virginia Board of Health vote that could permanently protect girls' sports and privacy in our Commonwealth. From the Family Foundation, I'm your host, Candi Cushman. Welcome to Speak Up Virginia. Everyone, glad to have you with us today. We have a special treat for you today because we have an exclusive interview that Victoria and I did when we were at the SoConCon Social Conservative Policy Conference 2025. We were all there. And we got a chance to sit down with the Federal Trade Commission Chairman, Andrew Ferguson. And, you know, he's been in the news a lot lately with this groundbreaking hearing that he led on the whole so-called gender affirming care industry and whether there's been deceptive practices going on with what they promise youth that this can be a magic cure-all.
Yeah, and this does make sense that they're actually taking this on because their objective is to go after some of these deceptive claims, health claims that they're starting to pitch to the public, especially as it relates to transgenderism, and to try and kind of get to the bottom of this and put forward some good research and some good observations about this that are helpful to families. Yeah, and
in case people are wondering why would the FTC, well, they already look into potentially, potential fraud, misleading claims in health arenas, marketing. Yeah. So this falls well within their purview.
Yeah, their objective is to protect the consumers, to protect the general public from deceptive health claims.
And we all know from the testimonies like Chloe Cole and the others that have come out that they were basically promised that this was going to take care of all their angst, all their problems, and they found that was not so.
It's not the case.
They had permanently changed their body. Yeah. So, all right, well, we are going to let you hear from the chairman's heart personally. We had a unique opportunity to do that. But before we get right into that, I did just want to share a few very timely updates with you on this whole transgender issue, all the different facets that it impacts right here in our Commonwealth. And Todd, most importantly, it looks like there's a vote coming up at the Virginia Board of Health. Tell us what's going on.
So you may have been following us on this issue, have heard us talk about it. The Virginia Board of Health is going to be holding a special meeting on August 18th to initiate regulatory procedures to help protect the privacy, the safety of female athletes. And so this is the first kind of major vote on this issue. And we're really excited about this. As we've mentioned to you before, the regulatory process takes a little while. This isn't just a one vote and you're done.
And this part is big news because before we talked about they were having a public comment period.
Yes.
But now it looks like they may actually take a vote on it August 18th, right?
That's right. Yeah, they're going to vote whether or not to. There was a petition made by some brave swimmers, athletes here in Virginia. From Roanoke College and then Reka from Virginia Tech. And so they initiated it with a petition asking for these regulations. And now the Virginia Board of Health is going to take up a vote of whether or not to accept that petition and move forward with the rulemaking process.
Okay, and so the rules they're asking for would do what?
So they would protect athletes or females in changing facilities, which could be locker rooms / bathrooms, also making sure that biological males do not compete on female sports teams, protecting their health and their safety on the competitive field.
Yep.
So that's the main objective right there. So we're looking at protecting females within the sports and athletic domain, and that includes, as we mentioned, changing facilities and competition on the field.
Because as you guys will remember, the leftists in our Virginia legislature have refused to do anything, even though your team has brought this up several times. So it's possible this regulation could permanently change what they've failed to address.
If we can accomplish this is a major win for so many families and female athletes all across the Commonwealth of Virginia.
All right. tell us how our listeners can weigh into this.
Well, we would recommend that you contact all of the board members on the Virginia State Board of Health. Contact them, let them know you support this petition and that you want to protect female athletes and their privacy and safety. There's also on August 18th is going to be a hearing, so they can come to Richmond and go to the meeting place where you can watch and you can actually speak if you get there early enough and get signed up. You can sign up and give public comment. We would encourage that and love for, if you're a young female athlete, would love to have you come and speak in favor of this petition, or parents too.
Yeah. If there's any way you've been impacted by this, both as a parent, as a student, or in a public school system, then we welcome you to come out and give your testimony. So we've made this easy for you. Just go to familyfoundation.org. That's familyfoundation.org, and look for the Save Girls Sports banner. And if you click on that, you'll go to our Action Center, and first of all, you will see the Board of Health members' emails where we've made it easy where you can email them, and you'll see pointers on what you can say based on whether you're a parent, a female athlete, or otherwise, or a concerned citizen. It's all right there at your fingertips. And we will also have information by the time you're hearing this on where to go for the Board of Health meetings. So check that out. Again, familyfoundation.org. Look for the Save Girls Sports banner on our website. And if you're just listening to this and you're going later, you can also go to familyfoundation.org/protectourgirls. Familyfoundation.org/protectourgirls will also get you right there. So Todd, I wanted to just quickly touch on a couple of other things. So there's been big news with this face-off between the Nova school districts, 5 of them, including Loudoun and Fairfax, and the Trump administration. Give us a brief update on that.
Yeah, so the Trump administration had let 5 school districts in Northern Virginia know that they are not in compliance with Title IX and that they need to adopt policies or get rid of policies that are not in compliance with Title IX. And all 5 of the school districts thus far have not issued a public statement of saying whether or not they're going to comply. We have a Loudoun County School Board that's actually meeting to decide whether or not they're going to comply with it. So that's going to be an important school board meeting.
Well, that will have happened the day before this goes live.
Oh, that's
so
right.
We'll see what happens.
That's right. Forgive me. I still have to remember that.
Yeah.
So the deadline was, I believe, August 15th.
Yeah. So when this goes live, it will either be a couple days before that deadline is up, or it will be it will be happening right as you're hearing this.
Right, yeah.
So this is very timely. Definitely want to be in contact with school districts if you happen to live out in that area.
Yeah, so I think we're looking at Loudoun, Fairfax, Prince William, Arlington.
Yeah, all the major ones out there.
All of them. So I would certainly reach out to those school boards if you live in them and contact them and say, hey, let's get in compliance with the federal government here and the federal Title IX.
I'll just mention, I think you had put out an alert, and I think that is in a blog form on our website, familyfoundation.org. It says something like that the districts had 10 days to comply, and some of them asked for an extension, but I think the deadline is August 15th.
That's correct.
So there's information there. But basically, when they're saying that they're in violation of Title IX, they're taking actions that put females at risk, whether it's privacy or the sports issue again. Yeah, the privacy,
safety of them within in sports, but also in changing facilities as well. So again, these Northern Virginia school districts have really created a real mess up there, and They need to comply. We're hoping that they do comply, but right now it looks like they're just not budging on this.
We'll see what happens if they don't comply.
Yeah.
What happens if they don't comply?
They're at risk of losing federal funding.
Yeah, and looks like the Justice Department will be sick.
And the DOJ would come in. So there's some serious repercussions if they don't.
All right. Well, we've been seeing what's been happening with the universities, so this will be interesting to watch on the secondary education level.
Yeah.
All right. Well, With that, let's get right into our conversation with FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson. And Victoria and I, as I mentioned, had the chance to catch up with him at a policy conference. It's a conference for social conservatives all across the country, otherwise known as SoConCon 2025. And he was speaking there. Did you go to his session, the one where he was speaking?
Yes, I did. And I thought it was very interesting. And just what an incredible guy, too, to really be taking this on.
He really has a fire in his belly.
Yeah,
and you'll
he does.
hear that when we talk to him, why he decided to have the courage to take this on and lead out on it. And I will just mention that we are at a conference, so you are going to hear some weird background, some background noise. I don't know if it's weird, but it's background talking, and that's because we're at a conference. Yeah. So without further ado, here is FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Me too.
Now, just to share with our audience a little bit about Chairman Ferguson, he is the former Solicitor General of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So you're a native.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Born and raised just outside Harrisonburg.
Yeah. And also, he's just got a ton of experience that has prepared him for where God has him in this moment now, including Chief Counsel of U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican Counsel for the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, and very interesting that you clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas. What was that like?
Greatest job I've ever had. He is the greatest living American. In my view, it's not close.
I heard someone else say that last night.
Yeah,
Same
he
thing.
He is a singular sort of hero in 20th and 21st century American history. And it was the coolest, most exciting, most fun, most enriching job I've ever had. It'll never be topped.
And it seems like he's very relational with his clerks. You know, it's not a job. He really builds a family and a mentorship. I mean, I've seen, they bring alumni back, and it just seems...
Yeah, and it's not, one could think that someone in his position might want to build a network of clerks because it sort of enhances his prestige and power. It's not what it's about. He just likes
people.
He likes people. He loves his clerks. He treats them like children. He's involved in their personal lives. He knows all the clerks' kids' names. He follows their lives. He's had grandchildren of clerks or children of clerks clerk for him now.
Wow.
So, the grand clerks, as he's called them, are now clerking for him. He is just, I cannot say enough good about Justice Thomas.
Wow.
Well, let's dive right into one of the big things you've been in the headlines for, and this is this recent hearing or workshop on the so-called gender-affirming care industry. And, as the head of the Federal Trade Commission, you've been able to look into what might be deceptive or even harmful health practices or the way that they're marketing it. And so kudos to you for having the boldness to lead out in front. Your comments were outstanding. And I just want to mention a couple of comments from that. Actually, let's just play a clip and hear a little bit of Andrew's opening speech on that day.
Good morning. Welcome to the Federal Trade Commission. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, John, for that introduction. Just over a year ago, the New York Times reported that the Biden administration had pressured the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, to remove age minimum requirements for cross-sex hormones and other sex change surgeries from their forthcoming guidelines on the care of transgender youth. Why did the Biden administration object to age minimum requirements? According to emails provided to the New York Times and the state of Alabama in its suit against the Biden administration, the Biden health agencies worried that including minimum age requirements in the guidelines would, quote, result in devastating legislation for trans care, end quote. The Biden administration's concern was not that age minimum requirements were unscientific, unreasonable, or unhelpful to doctors, therapists, parents, and children experiencing gender dysphoria. Science was beside the point. Instead, their concern was political. They worried that age minimum requirements gave too much ammunition to critics of gender-affirming care. The Biden administration didn't care about the parents and kids who might have relied on those requirements when deciding whether to consent to expensive hormone treatments and sex change surgeries. They didn't care about the parents and kids who might have been spared a lifetime of pain and regret if their doctors, therapists, and surgeons had observed those requirements. They cared about politics. They didn't care about people. Today, by contrast, is not about politics. It's about the parents and kids the Biden administration chose to ignore. It's about our nation's children who stand most in need of our love, protection, and support. It's about their parents whose selfless and fruitful love is the foundation of our nation and of every nation. It is about caring for the most vulnerable among us and protecting them from manipulation, deception, and abuse. It is about healing the wounds that proponents of gender-affirming care may have inflicted on our nation's children and parents and preventing the potential for future harm. Today is about people, not politics.
Well, one thing I really appreciated that you said was today is going to be about people, not politics. Why was it important for you to start it out like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the gender-affirming care issue is politically fraught, and a lot of people have criticized the Federal Trade Commission for sort of looking into this issue at all. And my view is refusing to look in it would actually be the politicized choice. Because, look, the FTC for decades, since Congress gave us the authority to police deceptive acts and practices in 1935, has gone after health claims, like, false, misleading, deceptive health claims. We have pursued claims against giant pharmaceutical companies, against snake oil salesmen, against doctors, clinics, people selling health supplements. And look, the FTC does not regulate the practice of medicine, but it does tell everyone in every line of commerce, no matter what it is, if you're going to try to sell stuff to consumers, if you're going to convince consumers to turn over their hard-earned dollars, you have to be honest about what you're selling. And so if you are misleading people about the benefits of purported care, or if you are not being honest about the risks of purported care, that is core FTC mission. And that's why I wanted to make really clear in my opening remarks that it would be the politicized choice not to examine this issue, given how much we've heard about potential deception in this industry. And that's what the workshop was really about, was hearing from people who have interacted with the industry, people who interacted with it as child patients, as parents, as dissenting physicians, as state regulators. Of course, states all over the United States have been passing laws regulating gender-affirming care for children. The Supreme Court just a couple weeks ago upheld this as a constitutional exercise of state police power. And that's what the workshop was about, was hearing from people who say they've been hurt by deception in this industry. And that is the core FTC mission, is protect Americans from deception.
What were some of the standout moments for you in that workshop?
So I moderated the first panel, which was a panel of now adults and some parents, adults who had undergone medical transitions and were detransitioning, and parents of children who had transition treatments pushed on them by doctors. And I got to tell you, I've dealt with this issue as the Solicitor General of Virginia, as other states, as Virginia, enacted its own transgender care or guidelines for school children, and as states were adopting laws on this issue. I dealt with it, but I had never sat in a room with people who'd been affected by this industry. I mean, it was extremely moving, and we have been encouraging everyone who has a position on either side of this issue, just watch the panel. It's only like 30 minutes long. Just watch the panel. Yeah. Watch people who said, as a 12-year-old girl, I was told that if I didn't have my healthy body parts removed, I would commit suicide, and this was the only way out of it.
And the parents told
and the parents. I mean,
it's going to save your child.
That's right. It was extremely painful to listen to, but extremely important to make sure that they got to tell the government what their experiences were, that they got to tell the watchdog, the anti-deception watchdog, hey, I feel like I was tricked into these treatments. Something needs to be done.
Yeah, because one girl said she went in for help with anorexia and comes out, a couple years later getting her breasts removed.
I mean, this was a consistent theme, was that children, sometimes, prepubescent or very early in adolescence, who are experiencing real mental health crises, real acute mental health crises.
Or had tragedy lead up to.
Yeah, all sorts of trauma. They were in extremis. They were in a very difficult point in their lives, and they went to seek medical help, and parents who were sort of at their wits' end didn't know what to do, and then had doctors say, and doctors are very proud, they were telling the press that we tell parents all the time, would you rather have a dead son or a live daughter? And that this is the only way to prevent suicide. And I talked about this in my speech, but one of the most important moments in the Supreme Court's decision in Scrimeti against the United States was when one of the lawyers challenging the law said, well, actually, it's true that there's no empirical evidence that these treatments reduce suicide. There's no evidence of that. And that had been the principal claim behind these treatments. And that is why I think it is really important for the government's anti-deception watchdog to take this seriously.
And what do you think the role of all these associations, right? So we have like groups of doctors that have been part of this, knowing there's not enough science behind it. And I think that was really powerful, just the way that started to come forward, that you don't, the science isn't there to be making these claims to parents.
So I would never suggest that your viewers should read an amicus brief filed with the Supreme Court. But the state of Alabama sued the United States in the course of its attempt to pass its own gender affirming care regulation, and asked for discovery, which is when you get to get emails and documents exactly from the government about their interactions with WPATH, which is the principal international organization that purports to promulgate these guidelines. And what they discovered, and they put in their brief to the Supreme Court, was there's all sorts of evidence that the Biden administration was pressuring these groups to disguise the science, to downplay the evidence, because they were worried about the political fallout of that evidence. And the state of Alabama's brief, which doesn't really read like a legal brief, it basically just tells a story, is really, really compelling about how political the science had become. And that is really, really dangerous. And again, I think it's the FTC's job to protect all American consumers in all lines of commerce from deception. And this line of commerce is just no different. Not only is it no different, this health claims are the types of things that the FTC has been dealing with for decades.
Yeah. All right, well, what's the next step in this process? I saw there's some public comment, and then what happens? Can we look to an investigation?
So we will be releasing a request for information, which is an opportunity, it'll be happening this week, which is an opportunity for the public to submit comments to the FTC. We didn't want to release it coterminous with the workshop because we wanted to hear from the people in the workshop about what they think's been going on, and then tailor the request for information accordingly. That will have the opportunity for people who want to submit confidential information that they don't want publicly released. Obviously, health claims often involve sort of people's most sensitive data and history. We want to make sure they have an opportunity to submit that confidentially. That will be open for 60 to 90 days. We'll take in that information. And then once we have a pretty good understanding of the landscape, we'll decide, what sort of enforcement actions are necessary for the FTC.
I know you have this Virginia background, and we've struggled in our Commonwealth to get the kind of ban that we see in Alabama and Tennessee. We did see our hospitals make a move, most of them, in the right direction after it came sort of from the federal government, from Trump's declaration, and we saw a bunch sort of backtrack. Now, interestingly enough, they said, okay, we're going to stop, and then very shortly after, UVA's hospital came back and said, okay, just kidding, we're going to restart. I know you're a UVA law grad, but we all struggle with these institutions. Do you think there's any role for either the Attorney General's office or anything that can be done besides just straight getting a ban through our legislature? Because that is a challenge.
Yeah, well, Governor Youngkin issued his transgender student guidelines in 2023 or 2024 that were the subject of a lot of litigation. But I think, the federal government, President Trump said in the election and then in his early EOs that the federal government wanted to protect children and families from this ideology when it's hurting them. The Justice Department announced at our workshop that they had more than 20 subpoenas issued to clinics and hospitals to examine whether they've been violating federal law on this issue. I know that HHS has been putting out that they have concerns about whether money should continue flowing to these institutions that are practicing this sort of care. So I think the federal government is clearly taking an all-of-government approach on this.
Hi there, Candi here, Victoria. We're doing a little cut-in here because, as you know, we're traveling for the Conservative Policy Conference, and, sometimes you have complications when you're trying to do a remote podcast, and we lost some video, but the person we were interviewing, the FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson, was saying some really powerful things. So we're just going to let you hear the end of that, and you will be able to hear the audio of that. So bear with us. Thanks for joining us.
But consistent with the law. You know, each agency has a different part of the law that they enforce, and their job is to enforce that law sort of, without fear or favor, including if people are being hurt by this sort of practice. So, I don't want to speak for Virginia, but I can say President Trump, as he has done consistently for the first 6 months of the administration, said he was going to do something, and his government is doing it. He made promises, and he is delivering on those promises.
Well, if they are holding on to that, they're going the wrong direction, because even LA Children's just the other day, said they're not going to have their transgender children's center or whatever they call it now. So, well, with that said, how can people give public comment, or if they have a story to share, where do they go to do that?
So when the RFI goes live sometime this week, the request for information goes live sometime this week, it'll be front and square on our website. You just go to ftc.gov, click a link, and it'll explain everything that you need to do, including how to submit it confidentially if that's what you want to do.
All right, I got to throw one last question. I just want to know if you can share anything interesting, what it's like to work in the Trump administration. Our audience is definitely going to want to know some interesting facts about that. I mean, it's interesting because you were appointed a commissioner, if my understanding is correct, in the Biden administration. And now,
quite an impressive thing.
Now Trump's tapped you for this.
This is the most exciting, the greatest job I've ever had was clerking for Justice Thomas. This will be true. This is the most exciting time of my professional life. President Trump ran sort of this historic campaign, historic victory. And he made a lot of promises in that campaign, and he's been selecting people for his government that are gonna, share his vision for how to turn America around, for how to achieve that golden age. And the FTC plays a small part in this. It is the most exciting time to play that small role in helping President Trump deliver on the promises he made to the American people. And look, the left is fond of saying things like, this is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. He ran on a promise to turn America around. He appointed people who share that vision, and they're doing it. And 6 months in, no government has moved as quickly to deliver on their campaign promises as President Trump's.
It's true.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you. One, to watch you from afar doing such incredible work for what we've gotten to interact with people like Chloe Cole and others we've had into our different opportunities and so forth. And I just, to know that there is finally some exposure for what this practice has been and all the harm that has been done. It is a gift to parents. In particular, we obviously care about parents in Virginia, but it is a true gift to go, okay, somebody's going to shine a spotlight on the practices that have just devastated so many families. So we are incredibly grateful.
And we're proud we can claim you as Native Virginian.
Happy to be a true blue Virginian.
Well, you heard him mention there that as a part of its investigation, the FTC has opened a public comment period, and I think that ends September 26th.
Right, yeah, and so we would encourage those that have been impacted by this. Maybe you have a child that has been impacted, you have some sort of personal interaction with this, it's harmed your family in some way, we would encourage you to share those thoughts with the Federal Trade Commission on this, because that can really help influence them and what they can do on their end. So this will be good information for them to have.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to that FTC comment area in our podcast show notes. So you can find that on the YouTube version. We're going to have that in the show description. And let's just give one more shout out for what's happening here in Virginia on the Virginia Board of Health before we go here.
One more time. We're going to be meeting on August 18th. Please go in and go to our website and go comment to the Board of Health. Comment to all of the board members. Tell them that you support the petition, protect female sports. And if you're in the Richmond area, please come and come to the meeting. Maybe you can provide a public comment, but be there to support those that are speaking to this issue.
Yeah, this is all about protecting our female athletes, our girls' health, dignity, and privacy. So add in your voice while there's still time. And remember, when we do that, we are stronger when we speak together. So if you get a chance, please share this podcast with people in your sphere of influence who need to hear what's going on and consider adding their voice. And you can share our YouTube playlist, Speak Up Virginia. You can find that on the familyfoundation.org website and go to that Family Foundation YouTube channel, share the Speak Up Virginia playlist. And also you can find us on Apple or Spotify. And it helps when you give us a good review there, a 5-star review, because that amplifies our message to other people. Again, Thank you for adding your voice, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.